Let's dive into the energy exploration unit, specifically activity 3 together to make sure we feel good and prepared to provide this lesson to our students. In our Canvas course, in our module section, you'll go down to 4th grade, and I have added 4th grade Energy Exploration Activity 3 Windmill Teacher Resource. So let's click on that. I'm still updating it because after I'm done recording this video, I will link it here. One of the things that you'll notice, and we'll review the teacher guide together and the student lesson, is that they want you to review the book, The Boy Who Harvested the Wind. And I think it was very important not to skip over this and to actually, on your iPads, you can share your screen on the TV and play this video of the YouTube read aloud. So I'm going to click it here. There's lots of different versions. Obviously, make it full screen when you're sharing. I'll pause it. But I really like this version. There's a lot of people that are doing read alouds on YouTube for this book. So if you find a better version, cool. Otherwise, use this one is my suggestion. So I have linked the read aloud here. I'm going to link a YouTube video of us reviewing all of this information and your teacher guide together. And then I also wanted to point out that the supplies that are needed are different this time. So you'll need to make sure that your teachers, and I will have already told the school site as well, that they need to have their VEX IQ construction kits. Those are the same tubs that we use to build the supercar. So they should have 8 of these tubs per classroom. So these 8 tubs should be in the classroom for you. And when it's time, you don't need to do, I would not pass it out before it's actually time for the kids to build. You'll pass out 1 tub per group. If you use less of the tubs, great, but we do not have more than 8. You will have to make sure that you guys find a way with the classroom teacher. You only get 8 tubs total to share amongst the class. You will ask and talk with the classroom teacher if you didn't have time prior to the Wednesday that's coming up about what additional supplies do they already have in their classroom. So they're going to need to have construction paper or cardstock. They could have cardboard or masking tape, transparent tape. And mainly they're going to be using the VEX IQ construction kits to build a windmill. It also says in our teacher resources that we need an electric fan. I have box fans and I will be bringing them the morning of on Wednesday, 2 per classroom. So the students can just share when they're building and they want to go see if their windmill will spin. They could blow on it, obviously, and they could set it instead of the box fan that I will bring. So don't worry about that. Let's dive into the teacher guide. So Ed Pathways students, you have like a PDF version, but this is the actual version of the teacher resources for Activity 3. So this video is also going to be for our Project Lead the Way classroom launch teachers as well to review. So you can see again that the information here, you have string if you need it, what do you already have and what is not included. That the supplies that we just reviewed together. So this will walk you through how to prepare, what questions you're going to be asking, but I do want to spend some time specifically on part 2, design a windmill. So make sure to read through this section, and some key areas to point out again is to determine how your students will test their windmill prototypes. Students can blow air over the blades or place the windmill in front of a fan. Again, I will have 2 box fans for each classroom to borrow. They're going to build a windmill based on the criteria and constraints in the procedure. That's important to point out the words criteria and constraints to the students. Part of this lesson, once we dive into the student view, you'll notice that there is the design process video, which you will share your screen, and I would play whole class. I wouldn't just rely on the kids to play that video by themselves. It's very important, the design process video. And especially when they get here to criteria and constraints, that's an important concept for engineering. And it actually is on their science state test. You'll also notice that in the student version, the students will have Main Street, an interactive experience. So I'm going to click on it. It takes a while to load. I am so sorry, but sometimes Project Lead the Way takes a while to load on the iPads. But this is something that you would want to share your iPad, share your screen on the TV, and you will, when it's time, you will showcase to the students, oh, okay, give them some time, an allotted amount of time to explore this. And then obviously you click on the little dots. This is going to be really important because they're going to be moving into their project and their problem. And their project and their problem does pertain to these people that they meet on Main Street. But just know that they can click on Explore and play out loud how Main Street uses electricity and energy daily. Oh, back to Main Street. I wasn't sure how to get back there. You can see they have windmills in the distance over here. Okay, cool. Okay, so back to your teacher guide in part 1. Talks about reviewing, and you could customize this however you would like, but it's talking about putting out some of those centers that they were going over in activity 1 and reflecting, and there's some guiding questions just to reflect about specifically how can energy be transferred in a system. Now we're going to focus on step number 4. Now that students have observed energy changes in the system, they're going to learn and read aloud, listen to the read aloud for The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind. And that is linked in your Canvas course. Then you can lead a classroom discussion with the questions listed here, and these questions will be embedded in the student version as well. All right, the next most important part of the teacher guide is design a windmill. They're going to design a windmill just as they saw the boy in the story do so. And after you present to them that they're going to be designing a windmill prototype, explain to the students that they will be going to use the design process to create a windmill prototype. They'll design and test their prototypes and identify the strengths and weaknesses of their design. And I'll let you read over this. Again, then it says, okay, after you explain the activity, to make sure you play the design process, which the students have this video in their student version, as well as all of us have access to the student version. So pull it up on your iPads, share your screen on the TV, play it whole class. Spend some time talking about the design process. Have them get out their launch logs and be specific on how you want them to document the steps of the design process in their launch logs. This is very important. This can be used as assessment. There's directions in the student course to prepare their launch logs. So you'll be sharing the screen of the student course and walking them through how to prepare it. So even before the students start designing and getting their hands on stuff, you're going through these steps. Make sure you follow the steps 11 and then 12. It says direct students to view the windmill and the wind turbine slideshow in the student course. You can do that whole class as well. This is the next thing after that. You're going to guide students to access Main Street, the interactive experience, and select the Barnhart sign specifically. So you're going to get into Main Street, but you're just going to focus on the Barnhart engineers and constructors. That's where you're going to kind of let them explore and then bring them back and ask these guiding questions. Then you'll let the students know what materials are available to them. They should be out in a set place in the room where students can get up and go get the materials that they need, but your tubs will be located at the student tables with their team. So you're going to remind students that they must construct their windmill out of the VEX components, that's the tubs, but they can add any of the additional material to help their blades spin. They need to brainstorm several ideas. They should sketch their ideas for the windmill prototype in their launch logs, direct them to label their sketches, like this is a blade, and so on. So once they have sketched out their ideas as a group, they need to decide which one windmill will they build. There could be enough supplies in the tub for them to build 2 prototypes. Let you decide on that with your classroom teacher. Once they're done designing their prototypes, you're going to have them draw or attach a photo of their final design to their launch logs. Well, since our launch logs are not digital at this time, you're just going to have them draw it. And to make sure they finish the 4th step of the design process of evaluate. You'll have to walk them through the steps to conduct a fair test to determine how well their prototype solves the design problem. They should conduct 3 trials. They can record each trial where they're putting the windmill in front of a box fan for a certain amount of time, and then document these trials in their launch log. Follow through the steps. The 5th step in the design process is explained. For students to become effective communicators, it is important for them to present and explain their work to others. This transportable skill, which means soft skill, includes sharing ideas and listening to other ideas. Guide students to create a presentation using Show Me interactive whiteboard. So they have suggestions on what to use. They have suggestions on what to use, but we don't really use any of those, I don't think. So ask your classroom teacher how they would like them to create the presentation. Most likely it'll be Google Slides. And maybe this is their first time using Google Slides, and that's okay. It's good to have them exposed to it, to figure it out, and it's okay that's not the best to begin with. So the presentation should have a photo of their windmill, a labeled sketch, so they could, if someone drew a really nice sketch in their notebook, they could take a picture of it and upload it, or sketch it within the Google slide, and to let them share their presentation. So activity 3 takes a while. Take your time, because this is a key aspect. It's a really good concept for students need to learn and explore, and they're going through the design process for their first time. It's extremely important, especially moving forward to the next activities. Number 16, and the teacher guide is optional. I probably don't have time for that. Now that we reviewed the teacher guide, let's dive into activity 3 in the student version, which is what you'll be using mostly when you're instructing the students. So again, don't forget to go through the steps. Step number 1 says read the introduction. Well, it's up here. You should read it out loud to the kids. And maybe you've already done this step. Okay, so right here. Says work with your group as you follow the design process to create a windmill prototype with blades that turn. When you see this, it's not time to build yet. It's time to learn. It's time for you to read aloud. It's time for you to review this right here as well. I would do the read aloud first, then continue on with step number 5, having them click in here with you and really kind of dive into his prototype, which is really cool. Making sure they understand what a prototype is. You could play this whole class. You're going to view the design process video, whole class with them. Play that. Talk about the vocab. Go back to your launch logs, complete the table of contents with the page number, date, and title of the activity. Prepare your launch logs for activity 3. They're going to go to a blank page in their launch logs and label it an energy problem solver. And see, number 10 says, before you begin to work on a solution, you need to know as much as you can about the problem. So you're going to walk them through this. And remember, we talked about the criteria and constraints. The criteria is the windmill blades must turn when moving air passes over them. So they need to get the windmill to move. Constraints, time, and material. They can't ask for specific material. The material that is available to them is the material they need to use and be creative with. And then you will need to limit them on time. I know I said don't rush it, but they could take up to 3 days if you let them. 3 little class sessions. So for sure, you need to allow them 2 class sessions to complete activity 3. And again, I labeled the first step in the design process as ask. You watched the video. So it'd be a good idea for you to model this under a doc cam. Step 11, they're not building yet. It's time for them to think of ways to solve the problem. Get a look through the different windmills. Talk about it. Then they're going to brainstorm ideas. So they go back to their launch log. Now they're labeling explore. They're going to sketch their personal ideas. Yes, they could talk about it, but let's have them come up with their own idea. So they could then model and choose the best idea amongst the group to create with the supplies that are available to them. And no, we do not give the students a guide on step-by-step, like with Lego, you know what I mean? With the Vex IQ construction kits, we don't give them step-by-step instructions on how to build. We want them to figure out what the pieces available to them, how can they get a windmill built, and where it spins. The blades are spinning. Obviously, if they're struggling and everyone else is finished, please help them with your creativity. Then this is where it talks about the evaluate, conduct a fair test, evaluate. You'll have to bring the class back together and you'll have to explain this. What does this mean and how do I document it in my launch log? You should give them an example, either write it on the whiteboard or under a doc camera in your launch log on how they can record this. And then they will need time to create a presentation. And again, it has these suggestions here, but we're going to just use Google Slides. They may not have downloaded that, so you might have to go to the app manager and download Google Slides for them if they've not used that before on their iPads. So they should have at least 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like 5 slides. And this might be their first time creating presentation, and that's okay. This will be another good assessment besides their launch logs, is their presentation. And then they're not done with the launch log. There is a 5th step to the design process, which is explain. So you review that as well. They've done a lot of work in this activity. So it says complete the conclusion questions as guided by your teacher. This can just be verbal. It's up to you guys and the classroom teacher if they need any of these written out in their launch logs or just a discussion. Okay, that was a lot. It's a big activity. Good luck, and I know your students are going to have a blast.